everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Katie, your run-of-the-mill millennial with existential dread. I apologize in advance if you hear my dog squeaking in the background. She apparently just caught a burst of energy and she's running around. Her collar, her tags are jingling and she's squeaking a ball. She might even bring it in here for me to throw to her so that she could go play fetch. Anyway, that's my quick disclaimer. I will try to minimize her sounds as much as possible. What I am reading lately, I like to get to the point right away on these videos and not do like a super long introduction. So this is called The Once and Future Witches. I like lost my bookmark, so I literally have this book, easy Spanish phrase book. I'm trying to get more fluent in Spanish as my bookmark. I'm on page 172. It's the start of chapter 16. I have to say, I am not super into this book, and it's literally over 500 pages long. It has good reviews though, so I'm trying to force myself to finish it and just trying to read like a little bit at a time until I do finish it. So normally when I sit down and read a book, I read like 50 to 100 pages before I get up and like, you know, or before I put it down. In this book, I'm allowing myself to read like 20 or 30 pages if that's what I need to do to get through a little bit of it. I mean, it was a monthly pick for Barnes & Noble for October. It sounds interesting. It says, in 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be in the wild, dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it at the ballot box. And in this book, this is before, it takes place before women had the right to vote, and these three sisters who are witches are trying to earn the right to vote, or protest for the right to vote for women. And I don't know, I mean, it just sounds interesting, but I don't know. If you read this, let me know if it gets better, if I am just, I don't know. Let me know, because it has good reviews, so I am going to finish it. It just might take me a little while. This one, The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. So she is probably my favorite author, and a lot of books by hers are like on my 5-star video if you watched that. I plan to read all of her books so that I can make a tier ranking video of Jodi Picoult books. This one, so far, I have to say is not my favorite. I'm page 231, so I'm more than halfway done. Now, I will say that her books are either, they kind of fall into two categories as far as I'm concerned. So one of the categories of books which this falls into is kind of just a relationship between two people, but she does really amazing research on a specific topic. So in this case, The Book of Two Ways is actually an Egyptian book. I think it was like buried with some people, in some tombs in Egypt. So, I mean, she explains it. She has researched the actual book very well. I mean, there's even like hieroglyphics and translations of hieroglyphics in here, because the character, you know, the premise is they're, you know, one of them is an Egyptologist, and they are able to read and translate the hieroglyphics. So like here's one where it has a hieroglyphic and it talks about it. So yeah, I mean, very, very well researched, and deals with the relationship between a couple people. So that's one category of her books. Her other category of book, which I think is the one I prefer more, deals with like moral and ethical dilemmas. This one, I haven't hit a real moral ethical dilemma yet. It's just the woman character is having like a dilemma about being in a relationship with someone versus another person, essentially. So not my favorite of hers. It's interesting though, because this has like her highest reviews, or one of her highest reviewed books on Goodreads, which is why I decided to read this one ahead of some of the other ones of hers that I haven't read yet that I want to read. But it's definitely not going to be my highest reviewed ones of hers, I have to say. But if relationship and, you know, that kind of thing is your preference, then you might like this book. And if you are not as big of a fan of her moral or ethical dilemma books, kind of like the last book I read by her was called Small Great Things, I think. I think that was the most recent book I read. And it's about a nurse experiencing racism. And that's a timely topic, you know, a dilemma. So that's what I prefer. Anyway, Hunger Games Trilogy. I got this at a book sale. The box set, $6. They're hardback, so it was $2 a book, and I thought that was fine. And I mean, I probably could have gotten it maybe like a little bit cheaper at a different book sale, but I mean, that was a pretty good deal. So I have actually read the first 2 books already. I've read Hunger Games and Catching Fire, and I have watched the movies. And I have to read Mockingjay, but I need to finish this book first. So how it was working is my husband decided to read these, and then I decided if he was going to read them, I want to read them too. So he read the first book while I was reading something else, and then he read the second book, and then I read the second book, and then while he was reading the second book, while he was reading the third book, I started this one, so now I have to finish it, even though he's finished the third book already. So I want to read that this week so that I can watch both the movies based off of that this weekend. So that's pretty much what I've been reading lately. There are a couple other nonfiction books that I'm reading lately, which I will show now. Okay, and these are basically more for school purposes. Oh, I have to say, as far as the Hunger Games books, I do like these. A lot of times I basically decide a book's star rating, I guess, on whether I want to keep reading it. I don't know if that makes sense. So there are some books where I can't wait to find out what happens to the characters, and I do have to say that this is one of them. Like, the first 2 books, I don't know that they're quite 5 stars, but I think I'd probably give them like 4.5 stars, just because it really kept me engaged, and I really wanted to find out what happened to the characters. Like, it was one of those books where I would wake up in the morning and grab it to start reading it so I could find out what happened, and I haven't felt that in a while with any books, so that's good. The only issue I have is that the entire premise behind the Hunger Games is like kind of ridiculous, like sacrificing 2 children every year. Like, I mean, I know it's supposed to be a dystopian future, but even in like the worst dystopian future, I don't see that being a possibility. But anyway, that's besides the point. So some of these other ones are for school. I haven't quite read all of these yet. These are actually not assigned readings specifically, but I have to write papers and I have to cite like 20 authors. Could be for journal articles, but also books. And so I did grab a couple books to read. So one of my topics is about refugees, specifically climate refugees. This book is honestly fantastic for if you're interested in the topic of refugees and refugee protection, called Refuge: Rethinking Refugee Policy in a Changing World. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Okay, my camera just died while I was recording that last video, and I had to charge my battery, so I don't even really know what I was talking about. So we're just going to move on to this next book, I think, called Looting Africa. Again, useful for some of my research papers. The True Cost of Low Prices, Violence of Globalization. I will say that this book has kind of like a Christian component to it, so it'll do like the chapter and then it says what the church teaches about this topic, and I wasn't expecting that. It's fine. I'm just letting people know in case it's something that they're interested in. These other ones, what else have I read? I read this one, Economic Exploitation of Bangladesh, because I am doing a research paper on climate change in Bangladesh. These other ones I haven't read yet, but they are, you know, might be something that I end up skimming to find if it works for my research paper. Migrating to Prison, America's Obsession with Locking Up Immigrants. And if I don't read these now for my 2 current classes, I'm probably going to end up reading them in the future for other classes that I take for this degree. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. This is actually super relevant to one of my papers right now, but I think I have like enough sources already, so I'm sure I'll use it in the future. Reparations to Africa. I think I might have skimmed this a little bit. I don't remember. This one I haven't read or skimmed yet, but it's called Dead Aid: Why Aid is Not Working and How There is a Better Way for Africa. So we'll check on this person's perspective. She was raised in Zambia, has a PhD in economics from Oxford University and a master's from Harvard University. JFK School of Government. So, yeah, those are the nonfiction ones. I swear I had another one over here that I was talking about before my camera just like went off. But anyway, yeah, so that is what I've been reading. Leave your comments down below and be sure to subscribe.